Whatever happened to Carnage anyway? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going to be covering Carnage in the all-new, all-different Marvel, issues 1 through 5. Now, if you want our channel to stay alive and healthy through all of these changes that YouTube is making, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, make sure you let me know down below what you think about this version of Carnage and Eddie Brock. While I'm at it, let's chat on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, since YouTube is now forcing me to beg for likes and junk anyway. Don't you just love all the changes that they're making? Lately, Cletus Cassidy has been seeing himself as a night person, but really, the only thing that he does while he's out at night is eat. One morning, as Cletus is heading to a diner to get some breakfast, he listens to a news report on the TV. He tells the waitress to turn up the news report because it's about him, the serial killer, Cleavon Cassidy. Cletus grits his teeth. It's Cletus, not Cleavon! As the news reports goes on, it reports of a woman who survived by the name of Manuela Caldrion, the sole survivor of Cassidy's first confirmed mass murder. With her military background, Miss Caldrion was a well-regarded security expert who is currently overseeing the security operations at the Gray Ridge Mine in West Virginia. Cletus slams his arms down, breaking the counter. She's alive! Over at the Gray Ridge Mine, FBI agents Dixon and Colonel James Jameson meet with Manuela to discuss their bait trap. John then asks her, why would she want to be bait in the capture of Cletus? And she tells him to just call her Manny, and a voice tells them actually, it was his idea. Barry Gleason is the managing director of the Gray Ridge Investments. After he ran a background check on Miss Caldrion, he reached out to the FBI with a proposal that Manny agreed upon. The mine is empty anyway, and it's set to be torn down. So John asks how much the Bureau is paying him to set up this trap, to capture Carnage. Barry says that performing one's civic duty doesn't preclude earning a profit, and John smiles, stating, you would get along with my father. John then asks what happens if this plan goes south, and Dixon says that they go to plan B, which a voice says is him. Eddie Brock steps out stating that he may not have the Venom symbiote anymore, but he does have the Toxin symbiote. Once Dixon lets him off the leash, that is. As the night begins to set in, the military all get into position, all reporting that they have nothing to report. But as they finish, Carnage begins pulling the soldiers away, while Manny and the other soldiers are on patrol. The soldiers then ask her, so Carnage killed everyone except you, and she tells him, except her. That's when Carnage appears, grabbing the soldier, shouting, except her! Carnage starts swinging at Manny, throwing her into a pile of metal, but Manny fights back, grabbing a pipe and cracking Carnage across the head. Manny picks herself back up and begins to run towards the trap, and Carnage follows closely behind. Once she gets in the clear, the soldiers open fire with sonic cannons, causing Carnage to separate from Cletus. However, the force from the cannons causes the ground to give out, creating a giant pit that Cletus falls through. Eddie looks down the hole and tells everyone, guess it's time for plan B. The soldier that fell down the shaft begins to call out for someone to rescue him. He can't feel his legs and he doesn't want to die alone. Carnage's voice tells him, everyone says that, but it isn't the alone part that they want to avoid. It's the dying part. Above ground, Dixon helps direct John and his unit between the mine shafts trying to locate Carnage. Manny notices a shadow on one of the cameras, and Dixon tells John to head over to shaft 16. But as he's told that, John begins to look at his hand and begins to feel his neck. One of the soldiers asks if everything is okay, and he tells them that it's just an old injury flaring up. Suddenly, the lights in the shaft begin to go out, and Manny and Eddie run over to try and restore power. Back down in the mine shaft, John begins to hear a scream, and as everyone follows the sound, they find a body ripped apart. Manny and Eddie manage to get the power back on, or at least part of it, but only the security cameras are working, no lighting. The cameras are equipped with night vision modes, so while looking at them, Dixon reports to John that there seems to be someone coming towards their location. Down below, John and the rest of them can hear bits and pieces from Dixon. The signal begins to cut out, and soon there's just dead air. John turns to the other soldiers asking what about him, but Carnage tells them the soldiers have been tied up at the moment. Everyone begins firing their sonic rifles, but the sound waves just cause the roof to collapse again. Back at the control center, Dixon tells everyone that they're going to send in a rescue team to extract John, and if they come across Carnage, she'll release Toxin. Manny then asks if John and his team are in danger, and Dixon stops her, stating that they didn't pick John because of his experience with sonic cannons. He has certain capabilities that even he isn't aware of. Over in the executive office, Barry releases a gas on the stationed FBI agents, killing them. He then sets a box back down, pulling out a book, telling the agents that their sacrifice will make possible a new age, and the forgotten door will soon be reopened. Back below, Carnage starts killing members of John's unit, asking, "Where is Manny?" As he moves to John, John's voice begins to change, telling him, "Manny isn't here, but maybe I can help you." Carnage begins to ask, "Who the hell are you?" And John says, "That's a good question. I used to be a man named John Jameson, but now you can call me the Man-Wolf." One of the soldiers begins to stutter, trying to call out to John, but Carnage says, "Werewolf? Is that what you were going for?" John says that in this form, "You can call me Man-Wolf." And Carnage tells him, "You say potato, I say tomato. Either way, you're just a furry." Carnage lunges at John, stating, "Lucky for you though, I want to have some fun." As Dixon and the rest of the group make their way down, Carnage and John begin to fight, slashing away at each other. John tries to escape, but as he goes for a run, Carnage begins wrapping up around him. John quickly grabs the tendrils, and he throws Carnage into some rocks, and then he goes back to attacking. While walking through this mess, Manny begins to ask, what did Dixon mean when she said that John had capabilities he didn't know about? And Dixon explains that John was once an astronaut, but once he went to the moon, he encountered something, an artifact. It was just like a jewel, but it was really an alien technology, similar to the symbiotes, and it changed him. The fighting between John and Carnage continues as John pushes Carnage through a wall, causing them to fall further into the mine. As the dust begins to settle, Cletus tells John, "I don't get to say this often, but that actually hurt. And looking at you, I'm guessing that you hurt too." Carnage begins to cover up Cletus, and he tells John, "We should just hurry up and finish this." And the two of them go back to swinging. Dixon and the others begin to press down into the hole that John and Carnage made and stumble upon the two of them fighting. Carnage rips the moonstone out of John's chest, and Eddie says, that can't be good." John starts to gasp for air, and Carnage says, "Here's a little tip I picked up fighting superpowered folk. If something glows, it's probably important." John continues to stumble back, and he ends up falling off a ledge further down into the mine. And Eddie says that it's probably finally time to let Toxin loose. And just as Dixon goes to release Toxin, a gun is fired, causing them to drop the remote. The remote begins bouncing towards the ledge, and Manny jumps out after it, falling off. Eddie and the rest of the soldiers begin firing their sonic cannons, but the sound waves cause a collapse, and Carnage jumps away. Carnage begins to laugh. Who would have seen that coming? And then Barry says that if he wouldn't mind, please come this way. Carnage begins to ask, who the hell is he? And Barry says that he's the man that's about to open the door for Carnage to a larger world. Welcome to your destiny. As the two of them walk in, Carnage sees a hall filled with followers, and he asks, with all of these people here, give me a reason not to kill you all. The priest steps in, telling him because of the prophecy. Carnage then asks, what, a bunch of guys in robes around an altar? Of course there's a prophecy. Just go ahead and tell me. The priest opens up a book that was brought in by Barry, stating that when the Red Slayer spills the blood on the sacred stone, he who sleeps shall wake and walk this earth once again. Carnage looks at him. You're all nuts! I love it! Down on the collapsed shaft, Eddie asks Manny if she caught the activator. She tells him yes. So Eddie tells her that there's only one way out of this. Push the button. And Manny asks if that's what Dixon would do right now. Eddie then says he's done some pretty bad things when he carried the Venom symbiote, no lie, but the symbiotes mess with your head. And right now, Carnage could be dead. But if he isn't, well, push that button. Manny pushes the button and Eddie's voice begins to change, and tendrils begin to appear, pulling all of the rocks and debris off of Manny. And Eddie tells her, don't worry, you can trust me. Toxin begins grabbing John, Manny, and Dixon, stating, no more trick guns or werewolves. Now it's just gonna be symbiote versus symbiote. Toxin versus Carnage. Back at the altar, Carnage says that he has two questions. First, how do you know that I'm the Red Slayer? The priest turns the pages of the book, and he shows him a picture of himself. Carnage says, fair enough. But second question, I spill someone's blood for a god. What's in it for me? The priest will look at him and tell him, immortality. Carnage thinks about it and says, that works. So whose blood do I gotta spill? The priest tells him, actually, you misunderstand. It's your blood that must be spilt. Your name shall live forever. The men in the robes all draw knives and they begin cutting away at Carnage. Blood begins to spill onto the book, and just as it begins to reach back to Carnage, he tells the priest that it looks like his blood and the book don't mix very well. But it looks like these are my men now, and that's my book. Toxin and the others reach the door to the altar, and Toxin says that it sounds like there's a party going on without him in there. He pulls back the door and he tells everyone to close their eyes. With a little luck, this could get ugly. As the doors open, Carnage and the army begin to flood out. While Carnage and his army begin to run out and attack Toxin, Manny then asks, where did all these people come from? And John says, well, I guess inside of there. Inside, everyone sees Barry carrying the sacred tome and running away. And Manny begins running down the altar, and Barry starts to chant something from the book, and a wall of fire begins to rise out of the ground. Manny jumps over trying to grab the book. But before John and Dixon can get help, red tendrils reach out, grabbing John by the throat. One of the Carnage spawns begins to shout, I remember you! I remember killing you! Why do you live? John's body begins to change, and he says that he's been asking himself the same question. And then he changes back into Man-Wolf, ripping the spawn in half. After tearing the rest of them apart, Dixon then asks, is that Jameson? John leans in asking, who's that? And Manny tells him, you're John Jameson, Colonel in the US Air Force. You were a good man. John says to himself, Jameson. I know that name, Jameson. Slowly, John begins to change back, and he asks if it happened again. And Manny tells him, yeah, but it's all good. He saved Dixon's life. Dixon and the rest of them begin to follow Barry, but inside of the altar, the fight between Carnage and Toxin is raging on. For a moment, Carnage calls out that the book has changed them somehow, gave them powers that he doesn't understand. But the book says that Cletus is more than Carnage. The book has made Cletus somebody, and then it sinks in. Where's my book? Up topside, Dixon and the rest of them make their way back to the command to give everyone medical attention, but as Manny and John begin to talk, they discuss Dixon's next plan, to sink the entire mine shaft. John says that he agrees that they should blow it up, but Mandy tells him that while she knows that's what they should do, Eddie is still down there. Eddie isn't the only man fighting the monster inside of him. He deserves a change. And John asks, what do you want me to do? Down below, Carnage says that this is why he hates people. Just when you get something special, someone else spoils it, takes it away. Back topside, the sonic cannons begin to fire, and Carnage begins to ask, what now? Toxin then says, we're gonna have to knock the mine apart and bury you. And Carnage tells him, on second thought, this is why I hate people, but I need to find the book. While Carnage is leaving, Toxin continues ripping apart the spawns, and after following the book's scent, Carnage finds himself in the church that Barry escaped to. As he pulls himself inside, Manny blasts him with a sonic cannon, except the book changed him. Sonic sounds don't hurt Carnage anymore, which is good for him and bad for her. Carnage pins Manny down, ready to bite into her, but Manny pulls out a detonator and pushes it. Toxin follows behind into the church to see Manny hit the button. He quickly grabs her, shielding her from the explosion. As the smoke settles, Eddie says that the mine's explosives blew that place up. That was gutsy. The FBI agents run a scan on the wreckage and they find that Carnage sadly got away. Dixon shouts that if John had collapsed the mine like she had ordered, they could have been rid of Carnage. And Manny says, yeah, but so would Eddie. And Eddie then says, wait, what? Dixon then asks how they're supposed to catch Carnage now, and Manny holds up a page from the book that she tore out stating that he's gonna want to come back for this. So they just need to find Barry, find the book, and then find Carnage. Elsewhere though, Barry continues running across the field and Carnage jumps in front of him stating, there you are! He grabs him stating that his boss was telling him a story before all of those guys tried to kill him. So do him a solid, tell him the rest of the story, because if there's one thing that he hates, it's cliffhangers. And that concludes the first arc to the Carnage comic book. This is a weird one, but it keeps going. So, because we need likes anyway because of the new YouTube algorithm, give this video a like if you want the second part of the Carnage storyline. Since we've never done one before, I kinda need to know if you want more of this. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this version of Carnage, and I'll see you guys next time right here.